Hello, Brother Sewing and Crafting family. Happy New Year. Angela Wolf here, and today, the first live show of the year. Well, what's the theme this month? Organizing. Isn't that what we always do in January? Organizing, lose weight, improve our appetite, or I don't know, other way around. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a cute quilted book cover. See you in a sec. All right, so did you have a fabulous New Year's? Do something fun? I never stay awake. For those of you that saw my little post on Facebook, thankfully for my friends in Australia, I get to see the fireworks, right? So today, this whole month is going to be filled with ideas for getting organized. What do we do in January? Get organized. So one of the things I do, I don't know about you, and by the way, I am live streaming on Brother Sewing and Crafting YouTube and Facebook pages, and I can see you all and I can see your comments. So as I go, be sure to say hi, say where you're from, and if you have questions, I'll try to take those too. All right, I see you all rolling in. That means you can hear me. Yay, yay. All right, so I have a question. In January, what is the thing that you do that's like every year or something new? For me, I've got a whole list, but one of the main things I always love, this is really kind of crazy, but I love buying a new notebook. Why? I've got a million notebooks, but I always love having a brand new notebook on January 1st. I always make my lists of things I want to do, things I have to do, lists that sometimes never get finished, lists of all those lists, and I like them in a new notebook. So today I got this beautiful bolt of faux suede fabric. I got a camel color and a black. So I'm debating which one to do, but I'm going to use camel color just so you can see better, and I'll use black thread. So we are going to make a very simple quilted cover for my very simple notebook. And you know what the best part is? I'll be using the Brother Luminaire, but you could be using any Brother machine. So any of you that got a new machine over Christmas, by the way, anybody get a new machine from Santa? Or maybe for New Year's, or your New Year's resolution was to get a new machine? I would love to hear what you ended up getting, if you did. And I know many of you bought the Scan and Cut. So I won't be featuring the Scan and Cut today, but I guarantee you Thursday we will be. We have a whole group of educators coming in. So welcome, say hi. I'm going to take you over to the table, and let's get started. Happy New Year, everyone. It's so nice to see the wolf pack in here. All right, so let's go right here. Okay, I don't know about you, but I got back to my sewing studio and you would have thought a madhouse went through here. I was so busy sewing before I left and I did not clean up. So this is what we're going to be using today, faux suede. We're going to talk a little bit about sewing on faux suede. I have some fleece, which makes a great, you could use fleece or batting, which makes a great thing for quilting. And I also have a little bit of clear vinyl. This is optional, but this is what I'm going to use. Okay. Get my jeans out of the way. More projects than one on the table. All right, so this is the selvage for my faux suede. The back side is just a very simple, nothing spectacular. The front side's very soft. Now, if you rub your hand up or down, you can see the fabric has a nap, which means you have to cut everything going the same direction. So I've already cut a piece that's about as wide as my notebook, and I'm going to face it this way. So this is my very simple notebook. No, it's not a Brother product, but it's a notebook that you can find just about anywhere. So the first thing you want to do is measure approximately how wide your notebook is. Give yourself some extra room because I'm going to do some quilting on here. You could also, of course, when we're finished, you'll see you could add monogramming, anything like that. But I'm making this very simple to start the year for anybody that might have gotten a new machine. Okay, so here's my first piece of fabric. And I'm also going to need one more piece for the inside. It doesn't need to be quite this big, but for now, I'll just cut both of those the same. So I know somebody's going to say, how wide, how long? It depends on your notebook. So take your notebook, open it up, make sure you have plenty of room around it so you have room for quilting. All right, that's your measurement. Pretty easy, right? You don't even need a measuring tape for that. All right, and here I have some fleece. I'm just going to lay this. I cut just a strip of this as well. And I'm going to cut one strip the same width as the fabric. A little bit wider, actually, because then I can see it popping out, and I know that I won't miss any of that. Oh, yeah, you're wasting a little bit of fabric, but not much. So now I'm going to cut this. So when my notebook is like this, I want all of my nap going this way. It's your choice. You could have it going either way. It doesn't really matter. So I have wrong sides together on my fleece. Does it have to be wrong sides together? Well, if you're going to finish the notebook with the lining, then it really doesn't matter. But when I finish this quilting area, I'm going to show you one option that's really fast and easy, and then I'll line it. So for this exercise, we have wrong sides with wrong sides together. No pins or anything. You don't really want to pin in this faux leather. The next thing I want to do is give myself a guideline, because I'm just going to do some random quilting on this. Now, of course, I could use this in the Luminaire with my design center, or you could use it in any of the machines with my design center and add a cool embroidery. But again, we're sticking to the basics today. Back to the basics. So I'm giving myself, this is just chalk, not wax chalk. It's clay chalk, like you would use in the driveway. And I'm giving myself one line this way, and then I'm going to give myself one more guide, just as a guide to follow. After I have this one simple line, then I can line it up using my projector, or if you just have a basic machine, you could use your foot, anything like that. So there's two lines. I know it's a little tricky to see with this, but when you get to the machine, you'll notice. So both of our salvages are lined up. Make sure everything's laying nice and flat. The back fabric's laid nice and flat. No stabilizer needed. Now let's go to the machine and we're going to quilt this. On my way back there, I'll check and see if you have any questions so far. So all I have right now is faux suede. You could use any fabric. You got a piece of cotton laying around, grab that. You don't have some fleece? Well, fleece you can buy for pretty inexpensive. This one is actually garment fleece, which I probably wouldn't use for a book, but it matches so well. You could use, if you're going to line it, you could use any type of batting. That would work as well, but just something easy to do. All right. Oh, I see somebody bought a Stellaire. Hi, Arnell. Great to see you. Starting new projects. I agree, Pat. All right. Okay, let's hit the sewing machine. I'll take this down and I'll meet you over there. I'm going to make this a little brighter because I know this fabric is just a little bit darker. Now, for those of you that do have a machine, so don't get dizzy. I'm just going to move you out just a little bit so I can change the foot. For those of you that have a machine with the Move It foot, which you've seen this, now there's even a new Move It foot. I don't have that one yet, but that's even smaller and narrower than this. It's a little higher actually, but this is the Move It foot. If you don't have that, you can just use a regular standard foot, but this works great. Now, this pops on and off, so you have different feet involved with this. And if you've never seen this foot before, when this is turned up, the foot is disengaged. When it's down, the foot is engaged. So this plugs into the back of your machine, and that's how you control the layers of fabric. This is great for quilting. So I'm going to make you just a little bit brighter. I have a feeling it's a little dark in here. There you go. So up means it's disengaged, but you can still sew with it. It just means that this area here, the rubber is not going to control like if it was engaged. All right, so it's very simple to change this. Hopefully my arm won't be in the way. I'm kind of reaching over the camera, so this is not probably the angle you would be changing this foot, but I'm trying to make it so you can see. So take your other foot off. Just leave it on top of my machine here. Slide this in. And make sure you tighten this screw really tight. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I'll bring you in there just a little bit so you can see. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. All right, then on the sewing screen, the other thing is this little section right here has to plug into the back. So just reach around the back side of your machine and plug that in. Okay. Now, you can see my chalk marks. Now, because I'm using the Luminaire, I am going to use some of the cool features for those of you that maybe just got this machine. If you have just a basic sewing machine, no problem. You'll still be able to just sew along. I'm going to pick a straight stitch, and let's use a stitch length of 3.5. I want it to be a little bit longer so it looks more like top stitching. Bring you in just a little bit closer here. All right, now because I'm going to be cutting off the excess fabric, this is much wider than my project. So I don't need to start right at the edge of this fabric. I'm just going to start in just a little bit. I'm also going to use, let's see if I can click this on, the laser light here. You can see this. Click the wrong button. Happy New Year. There you go. You can see these lines now. I want to use a grid. You see that green? If I bring you in really close, I want to line that up right there with my chalk mark. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see. And I'm going to move it over just a little bit. There, now one of my grid lines is lined up exactly on my chalk mark. It'll make it very, very easy to see. And there's the grid all by its lonesome. I can never tell how easy it is to see some of these. Let's see if that's a better color. No, this will work. Red, I think, is a little bit more challenging. There, you can kind of see the white. What do you see better, the white or the green? I'll leave the white for now, and then I'll come and check. So as I sew, and I know this is a really large grid, I don't need something this big. I just want to lift up because I know that I have very thick fabric here. I also have settings on the machine where I can adjust how much that wheel turns. The machine is actually, this is different than a walking foot. You've probably seen us use this before, but just in case not, I'm just going to change that a little bit. And if you're unsure, you can always just take this, run it through the machine, and test it first. And you can see how this is, the new Move It foot is a little bit higher, so this thicker fabric can fit right through. But I do notice that my plastic section here is a little higher on my machine, so I'm going to lower that. Or raise my machine, I should say. Then that fabric won't get stuck under there. So if you have your machine set in a cabinet, and this section here is a little bit too high, it's going to bunch that fabric up. So just raise your machine up just a little bit, depending on if you have electric or just by yourself, and that should do the trick. And I'm going to close this so my grid goes back on. There we go. And I can see this perfectly. I don't know if some of you have been watching some of the trends for this year, but quilting is definitely one of the big ones. Quilting in garments, quilting in bags, quilting in just about everything you can think of. All right, when I get to the end, I'm just going to lift this up, make sure it looks okay. Now I'm using black thread so you can see this. I probably would use a matching color, but for now, this is what you're going to get because I want to make sure you can see. All right, so here's my grid, and now I can take this line, and if I bring you in a little closer, I think you'll be able to see a little better. There you go. I can actually line this line that I just stitched all the way over here if I want to, wherever I want them, however wide I want my quilting lines to go. Now, I'm looking at the camera while I'm quilting, so if for any reason these are a little crooked, full disclosure. All right. And I'm going to move this over just a little bit so you can see that black line that I'm stitching as well. Can you see this line right here? So where I'm looking right now, I'm not even looking over here. I'm actually looking at this black line lined up with my grid. Now this project here, this would also make a great pillow. This would make a good accent to something that you're working on. All right, now I have 2 rows of quilting. I'm just going to do a few more because I'm actually going to probably use this bag even though I'm using a different color. And this time I'm going to make it just maybe 2 over. And again, I'm using my hands to keep the fabric nice and flat, just keeping my eye over here to make sure this line is lining up with my grid. Okay, you're going to continue these lines. I'll just bring you out just a little bit so you can see this. So I've got 3 lines. Everything's lining up nicely. Just continue to do a few more lines. If they're far apart, if they're close together, I'm just going to run a few more here. This is actually a really fun project for you, especially if you're new to sewing, if you have a new machine. And if you don't have this grid, no worries. Just keep stitching. And you could either line up the edge of your presser foot, like for example, right here. Line up the edge of your presser foot with one of your old lines and have narrower rows. You can give yourself more chalked guides. There's a lot of options, but a lot of the Brother machines have laser guides. And that's a great way to sew straight, even if you are looking over a video camera. All right, we got 4 rows. Let's see. Might as well do a few more while I'm here. I just saw somebody say, yeah, this would definitely be cool on a garment. This also works good on faux leather, and I have a full tutorial on the Brother blog on how to make this with faux leather. Then you don't even need to finish the insides because all the raw edges don't fray. Now this doesn't fray either, but I'm going to do something to finish it, just a little. Give it a little more polish. Now, if for any reason when you start stitching this and you're using the Move It foot, if you find that maybe your fabric is gathering up, it's scrunching behind you, be sure to change the adjustments on the machine. It's in your settings. Okay, how about just a few more rows here? You could use decorative stitches for this. There's so many different things here. Actually, you know what would look really cool is if you use decorative stitches on this, just different ones. Okay, let's see. Let's get the edges over here just in case. And maybe one more row that's a little closer to that. Now I'm going to line up my black line here over on this side. That's what this grid is so great for. I used to use the laser light all the time, just the straight laser line, but this grid is so easy. It's so bright and easy to follow. Okay, and I have a few more right here to get all the way down to this side. Let's just do one that's maybe 2 over here. That first line was very crooked because I was not paying any attention. I was looking at the camera, so we'll just see how that looks. We'll put that on the back side of the notebook, right? And how about just one more here? Okay, so now we have one side of the rose all the way finished. There's the black lines all the way over. Hold this up just so you can see that. Now I'm going to flip this around and find, this is my other chalk line here. Line up the grid, and I'll pick a different color for the grid to see if maybe you can see a different color better. Let's go in here. You can see that green a little bit better. And now I'll line up, just pick a line, and I'm going to line that up with my original chalk mark, just as a guide. Now, if you notice, I'm stitching from all one side going the other way instead of stitching, turning around back and forth. I just find that to be a little easier for this, and I'm not using this whole entire piece of fabric either. Let's see. Do a few more rows here. Let's go this way now. I need to make sure that all this fabric stays attached to the fleece. If you're using quilting fabric or maybe canvas, the process would be exactly the same. I actually have a really cute bag out of canvas using something very similar to this with the fleece on the bottom. No, I'm not tying off. I saw someone asking if I'm tying off the ends. No, I'm not. I'm actually just sewing because I'm going to be cutting inside of this anyways and finishing the edges. So there's no need to block your stitches. All right, let's see. I'm going to move my grid over this way now. You see it moving? And that way it gives me a little more room here. Let's see if I can move this too. Make it a little bit bigger. There. If you hear that knocking, that means that's as big or as large or as far over as it can get. It's letting you know, stop already. Now, I made this bigger. I want to show you something. I am not looking inside this needle. So if you look really close to this needle, I am not looking in here. I'm actually looking over here where this stitch line is, and I'm lining it up right along that grid. All right, and I'm going to go way over now. Can you see this little red line here? So not only do you have the grid, now I can actually take this line here and move this around. There you can see that red line. That's an extra guide. So maybe I was lining this up with a certain area. There are a lot of different options here that you can work on. If I just want to have just a line as a guide, if you look closely, you can see that right. Oh, focus. See it right here. But I'll do the big grid. I think I can see that better, and so can you. Okay. think we're just about, I'm going to do just a few more rows here, and I'm going to line this up just on the edge of the grid here. And again, you could do this over and over and over. I just want to get to the point of making the book cover so you know what you're looking for. Now, do you notice once I lifted the machine a little bit in the back, how the fabric isn't getting stuck back there at all? So if you have any problems with your fabric getting stuck and you're using the older Move It foot, which is a little bit lower on the back, make sure that your fabric can actually feed behind it. Just a little tip for you. What needle am I using? I'm actually using a number 14 jean needle, and this is faux swing. You could also just use a standard 12 size needles. That would work as well. All right, and one more row. I think that looks pretty good. So I'll take you over to the table. Let's cut our bag. Of course, on my way, I will check in to see if you have any questions. All right, any questions about the bag so far? Oh, thanks, Lisa. I did finish this top right before New Year's Eve. It turned out so cute. I've almost worn it out in 1 week. Hi, Patty. Oh, Caroline, that new Move It foot is amazing. Yes. Ooh, Sherry, that sounds fantastic. We're making a book cover and learning how to quilt on faux suede. All right, anybody else? Josie, great to see you. Definitely, Amy. It's time to learn how to quilt. Garments are like the big thing. Even if the fabric's not quilted, they're piecing together some really cool things. So let's go to the table and I'll show you how to make your cover. Make this a little brighter so you can see, because I know that this suede can get a little dark for you. Can you see that a little better? And you can just barely see the stitches. So the back side looks like this. And I'll make you just a little bit brighter yet. Sometimes you never know what this is going to look like on camera. There you go. All right. So now take your notebook. I'm going to open this up. This is how wide I'm going to need the notebook. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. Are you going to add little panels to the inside? Are you just going to leave this raw? So let me just give you a little example. If I were to cut this, I'm going to cut it way over here. Just going to give myself a nice straight edge to start with. I think I did not push just hard enough right in one spot. There we go. There. Okay, so if you take a look, here's a nice straight edge to start with. You need to give yourself a little bit of extra room because when the book is closed, you don't want this to shove out on the side. So you got to keep that in mind. You can't just lay it flat. And you might have a really thick notebook. Maybe you have a lot of goals this year. The other thing is, do you want to add vinyl in there? Do you want to add little pockets in there for pens? It's your choice. So I could, and when I wanted to cut that to show you something, this really doesn't fray. If it does, it's very minimal. So if you were using faux leather, you could just leave this and not finish the edges. But I'm going to add an extra panel at the end that will sew inside out to be able to make sure that I don't end up with anything fraying on the edge. But if you're using faux leather, you could just cut around this and you're almost finished. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut the size that we need. And I'm going to fold my book closed just to make sure I've got plenty of room. And I do, which will take me to about right here. I'm just going to cut there to give me a guide. give myself a guide, I should say. All right, that looks pretty good. And now we need the length. See, I'm cutting off all those extra little frayed edges that we had. And I love this color. Actually, I use the black with this because I have a beautiful black computer bag coming from one of our fabulous Wolfpack friends. And now this will match to go right inside. Okay, so here I'm going to give myself just a little bit of extra room, maybe to here. You can always make this smaller, but you cannot make it bigger. Ask anyone who's tried to make a book cover and it ended up being so small they used it as a wallet. I have no names in case you're listening. All right, so there's my cover. So this is the outside. Now, again, we were talking about other things you could add here. So a monogram. Go back through one of the old shows. You could add a monogram. Now with the scan and cut, I could have an applique sent over. Very simple to do. You could do it now, or you could have done it before you did the quilting. It's your choice. When it comes to everything that our machines do, the possibilities are endless. All right, so now I want to have two little plastic sections that I can just tuck maybe, I don't know. I always have little notes. I might have a mailing, a check or anything like that I don't want to lose. So now I'm going to grab my vinyl. And I'm just going to cut a small piece off here. Just to get this out of the way. You can buy this in big rolls or just buy the yardage at most sewing shops. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. I'll bring you in just a little bit closer. So how much room do I want? Now this stuff does not fray, by the way, at all. So I'm going to cut this the same height. The height is my book. It's hard to see. It's like looking through invisible. There you go. And so here's one piece. I don't think I really want it quite that wide. I just want little tucks. So I'm going to cut one more piece here, make them the same height, and then we're going to be using a lot of this clear vinyl this month because I've got a clear pencil or makeup bag to make with some zippers. This is just the beginning of our quilted organizing bags. Now, again, it doesn't fray, so you really don't need to fold it over. You can just leave this raw. Trying to debate if I want to leave an opening on both sides. All these decisions, right? That looks good. And this is not exactly the straightest I've ever cut, but it's really not going to matter because it's going in the seam allowance. But I'm going to straighten it up just a little bit. So that's one. And let's go ahead and see if I've got a smaller one to put on this side. Now this is going to go on the wrong side, by the way. This is going to go on the inside of the bag, in case you're wondering, what in the world are you doing? Okay, So how wide did I do these little panels? Well, just picture that once this is sewn together, right now I have this on the right side because we're going to sew this together and fold it to the wrong side. But when we're finished, and for those of you that are not going to finish your edges, you would put this on the wrong side right now, and you could go ahead and stitch around the entire bag and you'd be finished. So just imagine that when you have this notebook, you're going to slide it in here, slide the back side in here, and flip it over. Does that make sense? All right, but this fabric frays, so again, I'm going to just place these like this. And I did cut another piece of fabric, remember? So I need to make sure that the lining is cut the same as, and you could use anything for lining. If your faux suede is a little expensive, you might not want that for the inside. But if you want your bag to look nice and rich, that's what you would do. Okay, and one more. So now we're going to layer this is the right side up. All right, let's layer our vinyl on each corner. I'm picking the straightest side that I have. And then so right side, then your vinyl, which both sides are right side. Then take your fabric, right sides together. And we're going to stitch all the way around the bag. And you have to leave yourself an opening because we're going to flip this right side out. Does that make sense? I'm going to leave my opening in the side here, so I think it'll be less conspicuous than in the bottom and top. So if you have little clips, you can use clips or just take this over to the sewing machine. Now, I know that was a lot of information, so I'll check to see if you have any questions before I go. So nice to see you all again. Yes. Amy, what foot would work? You could use the roller foot, that has little balls at the bottom. You could use the open toe. You can use the plastic foot. Any of those, if you have those, or just use the standard foot, you'd be fine. Just a regular foot. Okay, what machine do you have again? Oh, yeah, the 425. And some of those feet you can purchase as well, like the roller foot. But I think I would just use a regular foot. I used to use that for years. It works great. Just your standard J foot. Oh, Cindy, you're binge watching on 2 places. That's okay. Hey, Elizabeth. Cindy, yes, you can use the Move It foot with decorative stitches. I'll bring the machine over there, or the camera over there in a second. It will gray out any area that you cannot use the Move It foot with. So you can't screw it up. Well, somebody's cleaning. Judy, you cannot add the grid to older machines. So if you have an older machine that, let's see, depends what machine. So there are so many different variations. Some of the older machines still have the laser light though. Like the Dreamweaver, the Dream Machine, those have the laser light. That's a great option. But if not, just do like what I used to do in the old days. Like I just did, chalk in a line, and you could even chalk in a few lines to follow. That's another easy way. So you know how I chalked that first line in, just give yourself a whole different area. And before I finish, I'll show you how I do that. All right, anything else? Nope, Arnell, it's faux leather. Nice to see you, Judy. Oh, Kim, go back and watch a lot of the Brothers shows. There's a ton of good stuff on there. All right, you ready? I'm just going to scroll, make sure I'm not missing anything else. Leah, I'm using the Brother Luminaire. Oh, Shirley, you can message me. It's not a Brother product, but you can message me and I can tell you what rotary blade I'm using. And Nettie, if you text me, I can send you, or send me a quick message. I can tell you what scissors. They're actually Angela Wolf branded. So, all right. Anything else? Leah, can use the grid on the Dream Machine. The grid is not on the Dream Machine, if I remember correctly. It has the laser light. It's been a while since I've used my Dream Machine, though. I love that machine. You have a great machine, but I'm pretty sure you just have the laser light. But I'm going off of memory, so it is after the new year. All right, so let's go to the sewing machine and let's finish this thing up. I can still use the Move It foot for this. And I'm just going to bring this out a little bit. I'm going to turn the grid off. Now, I'm not using clips or anything. My fabric is laying totally flat, and I'm just going to stitch along the edges. I can use a guide right here in the foot. And again, I'm leaving a hole in the side. Remember, not at the end. So start somewhere in the middle side. What seam allowance? About 1/4 inch. It depends how big you cut it, though. I cut mine bigger, so hopefully I should be fine. Making sure everything is nice and flat here. And I'm still using black thread so you can see everything. You'll notice this faux suede loves to stick to the vinyl. Okay, somebody asked about the laser light. So many of you have just the laser light. So I'm going to bring the laser light up just by itself. It's way over here, in case you're wondering. I'm moving it over. Come back to the fabric. And I'll take you to the machine in a minute and show you where these buttons are, just in case you're like, where in the heck are you? Now they're coming over. You can see that green if you look really close. There it is. I can use that as a guide if I want to on the sides. I can have it lined up where it's right on the edge. I can turn whatever color. Let's see what would be the easiest for you to see. You can kind of see the white there. And the subline is white as well. I think you'll see that a little bit better. And I can move this closer together or further apart. How wide of a seam allowance do I want? So now I can have, if I wanted to line up this line with something and this line with the edge of the fabric, there are a lot of options there. For now, I'm going to leave it off because I know some of you don't have this feature and I don't want you to be too envious. All right. And I'm just stitching with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. That looks about right. Let me do one more stitch. There we go. And you'll want to stitch, if you don't know how to press your foot in a slower speed, then set the setting on your machine just to a slower stitch. A slower speed, I should say, not a stitch. Just making sure everything's lining up. All right. I just saw somebody say, could you use bias binding on this? Yes, you sure could. One book cover, many ways. So if you make this, by the way, which I challenge you to because it's such a great thing at the beginning of the year, you can put the year on it. Maybe you want to put as a memory for what you're making, a wardrobe book, a creative planning book, the list that you wake up in the middle of the night that you forgot to do book. I don't know if any of you have those, but I've got a couple of those. All right, and I'm just going to go down a little bit because I need plenty of room to be able to turn this around. So just do a little back stitch one or a stay stitch, whatever you want. And then, oops, sorry, wrong button. And now I'm just going to go forward and cut it. So this is what we have. I'll bring you out just a little bit. I have stitched all from here all the way around, all the way around to each end. Let's make sure we captured all the fabric in the back because my cutting isn't always perfectly straight. Yeah, I captured everything. Let's go to the table. Now this is when I go to flip it around and go, I hope I put the vinyl on the right side, because if I did it wrong, it's going to become a whole different compartment. It's going to be a design element. The first of the year, you never know. I'm always a little rusty getting back into the sewing room. So any questions, by the way, for me? Here it is. You can barely get my hand in there, so I might have to open a few stitches. Just barely. All right, I'll meet you at the table. Okay, what kind of design element are we going to end up with? So here you have the quilting with the fleece. Here's the back side. Here's your little hole. And just reach in there and gently squeeze the fabric to the right side. You have to be a little careful with the vinyl because you don't want to rip the vinyl. So I'm going to open up a little bit more here, only because I cannot reach my hand in there. Now, reach your hand in and pull everything to the right side. And again, that vinyl can be a little bit touchy. It's thicker than I was imagining, right? Wait till I make the zippered makeup bag. That one we don't flip to the right side though. That one we do a nice binding. All right, let's pull this through. There we go. Karina, is this what you call birthing the bag? Just out of curiosity. Okay, let's go in here. So now this is the lining side. I'm just making sure everything's nice and tight. Captured all the edges. I'm going to want to go to each corner to make sure it's nice and straight. So for example, here's a corner. Bring that corner out. Let's go to this side. I don't usually trim the corners with this because I don't want it to pop out. All you have to do is fold that fabric over on the inside. I think you might be able to see this. Hold this fabric over on the seam like that. Hold your finger right there and then bring it to the right side. Now this is a lot of layers, so don't break a nail on it, but see how nice that looks? All right, so this is one side. I'll need to finish this little edge here. That's not a big deal because I'm going to do top stitching around this anyways. All right, now let's flip. This would be if I wanted the vinyl on the right side, which I don't. So I'm going to flip it to the wrong side here. All right, first I'm just going to tuck these and then I'll reach my hand in to be able to make those corners nice and tight. Now, if you wanted a real stiff book cover, you could put a different stabilizer in here. I just wanted something soft. And the other good part is if I buy the same notebooks each time throughout the year, I can just keep swapping out the cover. Okay, there's one corner. And the other. Reach in there and get that a little bit straighter. Now, do you have to do top stitching around the whole thing? Absolutely not. But I need to tuck this under. So I can either sew this by hand and tuck it under, or do a nice top stitching. It's totally your call. I just need a little more point on these pieces right here. So I'm going to reach my hand in there. Again, that's probably going to be your most challenging part, is making sure these have a nice point. All right. And this side here. What do you think? It looks pretty good, doesn't it? All right, so let me go back over to the machine, and I'm going to add a top stitching along these edges to make sure that this stays in. So all you have to do is tuck this side in. Don't press it or anything. You don't want to press vinyl. Just tuck it in like exactly where it was sewn. And now we're going to go and we're going to just do a nice top stitching. I'm going to do this about, let's see, how much room do I have in here? I've got plenty of room, so I could do the top stitching just on the inside a little bit. Before I do that, though, I just need to check these corners one more time. So I'll come over to see if you have any questions while I'm popping out these corners. All right, any questions? So I'm going to go back here. One of these corners is not coming out the way I want to, so I just have to reach my hand in there and make sure it's turned the right way. Here we go. Ta-da. It's kind of tricky to get in there because that vinyl makes it very... Now, do you remember when I mentioned sometimes I put the vinyl inside just a little bit? I don't put it in the seam. So if you have any difficulties with this, that's what you would want to do if you've like a really thick fabric or something. So I just had a lot of vinyl there, so I'm just going to take my hand there, flip the seam over where I'm holding it, and then turn it to the right side. And that should do the trick. Should. We'll see. Put some hair clips around the edges. I agree, Karina. Actually, Karina, when I got here today, I'm like, where are all my hair clips? That was a great tip for bags. Fashion Sewing Club members, by the way, if you missed that last week, Karina showed how to make an awesome bag, and it's in the club, so you can watch the replay. There we go. That's much better. And let me get the other side. Thank you, Lisa. Nice cover. Anything else you got questions on before I take it to the top stitching? Oh, I agree, Cindy. That would be a great project for school. Actually, it'd be a great project for school for January for kids to start the whole new year getting whole new grades if they needed that. All right, this one last side has a little bit. I'm just going to trim off just a little bit. I've got extra vinyl on that one, and it's just really being a pita. Pain in the tush. All right, here we go. There, that's looking much better. And I'll take you over there so you can see it, but there we go. Now our corners are looking good. Now our bag looks good. All we have left to do is that top stitching. Now, before I do that, some of you had asked about doing decorative stitches. This would look really good with a decorative stitch around it, wouldn't it? I will end up giving this a nice pressing. You cannot press this vinyl, though. Don't forget. That would be bad. That would melt your fabric. Even if you have an iron shoe, I still wouldn't press the vinyl. All right. What size vinyl? You know what, Diane? I have to look up the ounce on it. I bought a bolt of it last year because I was using it for makeup bags. So I can check. And no, Casey, I did not say how thick, but I will check. Okay. See you guys in a sec. I will bring you over there. I think I got all the questions. And I love that. Let's go to the machine. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is just my personal preference, I want to stitch this vinyl to the edge of my fabric here, not to this side, but it's hard to manage 3 layers when if you only have 2 layers, it's much easier. So I'm just going to slide this under, pushing the right side out of the way, and I'm just going to stitch well, it's basically just stitching the vinyl to the faux suede. So then just in a few spots, so when I tuck it under, it just stays a little bit better. Now the settings for my Move It foot would be different because these 2 layers are much different, but I could either lift up this cord and turn off the Move It foot or just make it work like I did. Make it work. Okay. I'm still not totally happy with these corners, so I might have to go back and work those. And I'm going to tuck these in. In fact, for that reason, I'm going to take you back over because this is something that I'm going to work on before I close that, because I want it to look nice. And if I do top stitching and the corners look like that, that's not going to work. So I'm going to go back in there, maneuver everything around. So let's go back and take a look at the book. And before I do that, let me show you the things I hit on the machine. All right? Don't get dizzy and don't look at my messy studio. It's new year, new time to clean. All right, so this was the guide that I was using. If you want to see how I clicked that. So I'm going to click that off right now. So I have the straight stitch. That's what we used. I clicked right here to get the grid. For those of you newbie Luminaire users that want to know where this came from, you have a main, which you have these options, and you have a sub. I used the grid, and that's where you saw that large grid. This is where I could change the colors of the grid, and this is how I could change the grid size if I wanted it bigger or smaller. On the main menu, this is where I also had other options, and this is how I moved the grid further out, and I moved the grid to the right and to the left. Make sense? Make sure it's on, though, if you want to use it. And that was the one area there. Now, if you look closely on here, what does that say? DF. Digital dual feed foot. It already knows what foot you have. So while I have that, it will tell me what I cannot use. You see these little items that are blacked out? Now, it depends what machine you're on. If you're on the Luminaire 1 or 2, it's a little bit different. But if I go to click this, it says, hey, you know what? Can't use it. Now, maybe I'll pick a different thing, different stitch. How about something like this? That's a pretty stitch. It shows me here what it's going to look like, and I can use that. So, Cindy, I think you were the one asking, can this do decorative stitches? So when I'm looking at this right here, once I get these corners where I want them, I could do some beautiful stitching along the edges, maybe add some ribbon, anything like that. But for now, let's go see what the book looks like. Not to mention our hour is up. I saw some of you saying, I was here at noon. Well, I had a little bit of technical issues right when I logged in, so I apologize for that. So I'm going to go back, work on these corners, make sure they're totally flat. I might even add a few rows of stitching through here, because if my corner of my book is going to go here, and this just gives you some creative ideas, all right? If this is my book, okay, and there's my corner, I could add a little panel here if I wanted for pens. If I'm worried that this vinyl's too thick, what I'll do is I will open this seam up, and actually I'll just show you real quick, because some of you are probably like, wait a minute, what do you mean leave it out of the corners? Let me just open this. If I were to cut this vinyl off right here and leave a section out, then this vinyl would not be in the corners, and the corners would not be quite as thick with all that vinyl. Does that make sense? Let me just bring this around. Since this is the side that's such a pain, why don't I just fix this side? This is how I do a lot of my book covers. I carry a lot of books around with me. I love reading. And a lot of them will have where the vinyl is cut just inside of the seam allowance, which gives you just enough room here to add the outside of your book, but it's not an envelope container like the others. So let me just rip this stitching out that I just did. Now, if you rip stitching out from vinyl, those holes don't go away, by the way, at all. All right. And I'm not going to use the rotary blade on this because it's on the fabric. So I'm just going to cut this as straight as I possibly can. Use sharp scissors on the tip and you're good to go. How's that? Now when I go to sew that side together, this side here will slide in. And then I have a little opening on the edge. So my book cover will be finished. If I decide to keep this side long or keep this side, got my little notes already, keep this side short. There you go. So I would love to know, are you going to add a monogram? Are you going to add any decorative stitches, anything else to this? And I will make sure that I add a link to the Brother blog. Because on the Brother blog, I show you how to do a faux leather one where we did the quilting and then you don't have to finish the edges or anything. It turned out really cute. And I actually added a few little ribbons in there to keep track of what page I was on. Just another idea for you. So that is a one quick, easy project for you for New Year's Eve, New Year's. And I'll just double check you don't have any questions. And what is the stitch length on the sewing layers together? 3.0, Diane. 3.0. Oh, great idea, Melissa. I think it's fun. So when you do that, be sure to share it on Brother. I have Brother's social up here, Brother Sews, Brother Scan and Cut. Share it with myself as well because I love to see what you're working on. I think so too. Very fun. So what's in store for you? On Thursday, we have 4 Brother educators, I believe. There might be 5. Let me double check for you so you know who's coming. But remember last year when we had the whole group, as many could show up because a lot of people are traveling again now, but as many could show up, got together, and we talked about our favorite organizing. If you missed that show last year, you have to go back and watch it. It was fantastic. I think we did a whole week of it, actually. So let me just see. I think it's Jerry, Sarah. Oh, I don't have it written down, I don't think. I do not. It's Jerry and Sarah. Oh, yes, I do. And Tina. And I think there's one more that popped in that I forgot to write down. So I don't know how many people are joining us, but it's noon on Thursday. I will see you then tomorrow on my show. If you go to behind the scenes, go to angelawolf.com, click on YouTube tomorrow at 1:30. I have a great show for you as well. Getting started with the new year with wardrobe planning. So I would love to know what you're sewing. Happy New Year, everyone. Great to see you all. The ribbon is a great idea. By the way, if you buy those really fun, the really thin ribbon, it's not very expensive. You can put different colors for different sections. You know, just something creative that gets you inspired. I agree, Sharon, an all-star lineup. Thanks, Casey. And if any of you have questions on the show, you can always leave message. I always come back and check them. Oh, Louise, that's a good idea for your password book. Great idea. All right, everyone. I hope you have a great day. Making sure, I know there's a 20-second play, so I'm making sure I didn't miss anything, but I will see you soon. Bye.